How do I find my niche? Now, just wanted to cover off, obviously, the main thing, which is on Sunday's Growth Execution newsletter. We talked about haircuts. And as you can see, my 12-year-old did have a go at my hair. We kind of stopped it pretty soon after that. But it's still a little bit better than it was. But anyway, enough about that. This is much more importantly about how you are going to be able to find the niche for your business. And if you're out there in business working with customers already, what can you do to really make sure that you're speaking to the right customers and they are hearing you in the correct way? All right. So one of the biggest challenges, I think, for any business right now is identifying and getting those new customers to believe in you and to recognize what you're doing and to appreciate it enough that they want to buy from you. And one of the core things that I see a lot is a kind of almost like a broadening out of the offering into wider markets, with a view that, look, if we approach or if we target more people, then there is a much higher chance that we're going to be able to convert more of them. Now, counterintuitively, I would argue strongly that that is not true. All right, that by broadening out your offering, targeting more and more people, actually you're doing harm to your ability to grow and to be successful. So we're going to look at that. I'm going to talk you through it in the next 15-20 minutes or so. Obviously, got any questions, anything you want to know, ping us in the chat, ping us afterwards if you're watching this on repeat. But what I really want you to get away, to take away from this is a genuine understanding of why focus and a real understanding of what your market is going to be absolutely critical to your success. So let us dive in. Now, I was speaking with somebody, a client earlier on, about the growth execution formula. And I just wanted to reinforce really why it's here. All right. Now, some people will know absolutely why these 15 elements are in this particular order and in these particular colors. But just to reinforce it. So on the dark blue ones, the product ones, those generally come first. All right. So product concept, design, service, pricing, USP. Those are the ones when you're developing your product, building that out, and it's worth circuiting back through it and looking at it again frequently too. Marketing, once you've got your product, then clearly you have something that you can go out and talk about, and that's where the marketing elements come in, brand, intel, content, distribution, advertising, and then you move on to the sales process, sales collaboration, sales goals, sales activity, and sales success. Critical next phases. You can have a great product, you can have some wonderful advertising and marketing, but if nobody's out there selling it, then you're going to struggle as well. So that's why this is in this system. It is a proven system that helps businesses to grow. This particular topic about finding a niche lives in product service. Okay, so in element 03. All right. So when we're talking about a niche, what we're talking about is a distinct group of target customers. Now, what we've got here is just a kind of selection of types of groupings, cohorts that you might be interested in approaching with either your new business or with your business product as it stands right now. And I've deliberately sort of grouped them into quite sort of some random ones, but ones that grow as you go further down to the bottom. So you might, for example, start a business or consider a business that is very targeted to people who are like you and your friends. All right. Oftentimes what you find is businesses that start out are started by people who find that they've got a problem and therefore they want to solve that problem, and they know it quite intimately because it's something that means something to them. So you are then essentially building a product and building a service for you. All right. Also, you might find that you know very intimately something that is impacting on your friends, colleagues, people that you know pretty well. And that, again, is a very small, tight-knit sort of niche. It may well have resonance with other groups, but when you're thinking about the actual person that you're servicing in that very top sort of niche, what you're looking at is people like you or people like your friends. So that's one particular way of looking at what the niche might be like for people that you or your friends. Then the next niche down that we've identified is highly motivated. So these are people who have got the problem that you are seeking to address. All right. And again, we go back to product concept, the very first element, which answers the question, why am I solving this problem? All right. So if you're looking at that pink cohort, the highly motivated, you've got to try and get an understanding of how many people are in it, what their real motivations are. They may be very desiring of a solution to a particular problem, but is it your solution? So that highly motivated segment as well needs some thought about. The next one is much more of a geographical base. So it's saying, right, we're looking in this instance, everybody's the UK, which obviously is 70 million or so people. And that clearly is a much wider niche, but it's still a niche, right? You can still argue that it's not the whole world, and therefore there is a distinction to be made for people who are UK based, for those that are, for example, based over in China. And in developing your product for a UK market, you are reflecting some geographical categories, some geographical associations between those people. And then there's the wider, basically everybody consumers, which is 7 billion. And that is clearly a significant amount. And that there is no segmentation going on there at all. So even just looking at these, what it does is it just kind of starts to guide you to thinking in terms of segments, thinking in terms of categories. If you are only making something for people like you or people like your friends, then that clearly is a very, very narrow market. And one that I would potentially argue is not going to give you a really strong idea of whether this product is going to succeed or not. Okay, there is almost too much emotion attached to this from yourself and to your friends. And it is a tragic but true situation that there are many businesses that were built in that manner, where the entrepreneur has gone to their family and their friends and said, look, I've got this idea, I'm doing this, what do you think? And they've gone, that's brilliant, that's amazing, just what we need and just what the world needs. And the entrepreneur has gone away and spent a lot of money building it, gone out to the market, and the market has not reflected the emotional connection to the product and to the person that their family and friends has. So that, but by restricting yourself to people that you know or people who understand you, you are running a very great risk that the niche that you're picking is not reflective of a wider business, and therefore you're not going to be able to scale out. All right, so that's one to be very, very mindful of. You need a wider niche, in my view, than that which is made up of people that you know. The second niche is one that I'm much, much, much more interested in, is one that I guide my clients towards, which is if you can find those that are highly motivated because they have that problem, but are not necessarily connected to you in any specific way, then you have a real opportunity to find a niche that is big enough that you are going to be able to make some money and sell enough product, but is small enough that you're able to speak to them and you're able to actually understand and learn much more about them as you go through building your product, as well as they go through consuming it or using it. So that section, let's just put that aside for a second, because it's that is really where, at its heart, your niche needs to be. If you go to a broad kind of geographical based, UK based, it is very clear that the number of people in the UK, or 70 million of them, are not, they do not share very many characteristics across the board. All right, short of being human and probably being cold and often wet. If you're looking for a product that is UK wide, then you are going to make it something that is so almost amorphous that it doesn't speak and doesn't resonate with enough passionate people who really, really want to get a hold of what you've got. And similarly, if you go super wide to all consumers, then you are literally making something that is for so many people that those that really can want to adopt it or want to buy into it, I'm not going to see any differential between that and another commoditized service that might be out there. All right, so you are essentially putting something out into the market that is going to be very unlikely to be able to find its audience very quickly, because it will just be seen as a commodity, and you're going to have to do something on price or something else that's going to really help it to kick off. So by focusing then on this highly motivated cohort, what you're doing is you're doing three things. All right, what you're going to do is you are going to identify those people who have the problem, find out where it's most intense, and then check just to make sure that there's enough of them. So if you think about from your own perspective, think about something that you're really passionate about, and perhaps it's a football team, perhaps it's a particular environmental cause, perhaps it's a particular local community-based activity. When you really care about something, when it's something that's so personal to you and that you are willing to really look into, really spend some time on, then the people that share that passion of yours, the people that share that commitment, are people who you want to be around, right? You want to be associated with. Again, kind of going from the football team side of things, if you're an Ipswich Town fan, which I tragically am, then you see other people wearing Ipswich Town shirts in a shop, which I did the other day for the first time in a long time, and you instantly just think, I'm probably going to like that guy, and you have no other barometer of what they're like or anything like that, apart from they share this one particular interest with you. But that idea of belonging, that idea of somebody caring enough to wear a shirt of yours, that idea of somebody being caring enough to volunteer in the same or for the same charity as you, and so on, those things bring people together. And it means that if you are bringing out a product that services that particular niche, so that particular group of people who have that shared interest, then you are guaranteed to get more back from them. All right. Again, if you go too broad, not enough people are going to really buy into what you're trying to do. But if you narrow it down, you go, right, do you know what? We are here for SME business owners who are looking to grow their business. All right. So very targeted niche that we're focused on here in Grosham, and we want to then all of our products and all of our services and everything that we do comes from that desire to service and to fix those problems. Well, that also means that in return we get the buy-in of people who want to join the Growth Execution Group, for example, those who sign up for the Growth Execution tips that we do on a daily basis, the Growth Execution newsletter on a weekly basis, who watch this webinar. These are people who know that this stuff is for them, that this information and this assistance is focused in on their needs and not the needs of corporates and not the needs of people who are employees who work in factories. This is about the entrepreneur journey. So, or the growth leader journey. So what you are doing and what you should be doing is focusing in on a particular niche, because that will make you better at providing a product into that market, and therefore will make the product itself more successful and will guide people to buy into what you're doing as well, really, really strongly. So in order to find your niche, you need to focus then on who has the problem. So find, you've set out, you've started this business, you've got this passion, this product concept for this problem that you want to serve, because it's something deep within you. So you've got to go and find those people who've got this problem, and you've got to get their buy-in. All right. And by doing that, you've got to go to where it is the most intense. So, for example, where might they be? They could be on Facebook groups. They could be, they could be like social groups for them offline. There's not so much right now because we're in the middle of a pandemic, but you might find, there's social clubs and things like that where they go and hang out. You might find that they all, they're in a supporters club. Whatever it is, understanding where they hang out and what really motivates them is going to be a really, really important part of growing your niche and focusing in on the number of people that you can serve within that niche. Where are they feeling it most intensely? Where is it most evident? When if they're going about their day-to-day lives and it's not particularly at the forefront of their minds, that's fine. But if, for example, Saturdays at 3 o'clock when the football starts, then that might be a time where you find that they are much more engaged and much more interested, or just before or after. So try and think of that as a kind of analogy. What in my world is similar to that guides those people to being really, really focused on what their problem is and that it needs solving. The third point is a really important point as well, is are there enough of them? Now, we looked last week at how you price up your product, and we looked at 3 different products within a product suite. If you do not have enough, or if you do not have many people within your niche, then you're going to have to charge them more, depending on where your goals are. So this is then comes into that balance of how much is your product going to cost, and therefore when you multiply that up about from the number of people that you think you're going to be able to serve at this point, then does that build you a business that is one that you can that you can sustain over a long enough period until such time as you are going to go out and broaden that niche. And the example that's so relevant right now, and I was talking about the podcast yesterday, we showed in a couple of weeks, and released in a couple of weeks, with Simon Dell of SEMO. The one that's really, really resonant is Jeff Bezos and Amazon. All right, now Jeff Bezos started out with Amazon selling books, and that was all he did, right? So he was focused in on people who wanted to buy books, but did not or could not get to did not want to or could not get to the bookshops, and didn't want to pay the book prices. All right, so it was home delivery of books, and he's on record as saying he chose books and then expanded to CDs and DVDs because they went through a letterbox. All right, so all the time he's thinking about, right, I'm going to service this niche and I'm going to make this niche work really, really, really well, and then I can organize the logistics, or I can repurpose the logistics for the delivery of other weightier, bulkier items, and solve those problems later on. So whilst what we're doing here is focusing very much on a niche in order to get the business launched, and in order to, once it's been launched, to hone your skills and hone the different processes within the business so that it can then expand, you are absolutely in tune with your business if you're thinking about how it can expand later on. Start with a niche, grow that niche into an adjacent niche, and then perhaps another adjacent niche, and so on, as Bezos did with books, then books to DVDs and CDs, and then grow out, and then shopping and PCs and all that sort of stuff can come along later. But you really need to think about whether there are enough people within your niche at the start that's going to be able to sustain you for the medium term. The next stage to think about is who your avatars are. Now, avatars are generally a cool way of thinking of basically who are the personas, who are the people that you are here to serve. How many different types are there, and what are they thinking? What are they believing? What drives them? What do they get out of bed thinking? I really need to do this. I often recommend that you start with one, okay, potentially go up to three, but try and keep it as narrow as possible. Because what you're trying to do is conjure that person up in your mind's eye. Whenever you're thinking about your product or your service, make it real for people so that they understand. So you're really thinking like they think. Okay, so whatever their understanding of the world is, you have a similar understanding of it, and by putting yourself in their shoes, by seeing the world from the position of your avatar, then you are able to make decisions about product design, about product pricing, about branding, and about so many other different elements of business growth. That it gives you a real sort of window into their world and what's going to make them buy your products. Things like sales process, how do they like to be approached? All of these things hang off the back of what your understanding of the avatars and the market really, really is. So that really kind of sums up how you start to think about your niche and how you can look at getting them into a position that you really know what they're thinking, what they're feeling, and what they really, really believe. Just before we go, wanted to focus in on the recommendations we do every week. And this recommendation is about, right, so say you've got some avatars in your mind. What you might want to do is to check in with a few of them who are perhaps a little bit outside your kind of connections within your social media and so on. There is a plugin for Google Chrome called Lusha, Lusha. And I'm sure that you have, as I have, and particularly around the business side of things, guessed at people's email addresses, okay, and assumed that if the way of getting of somebody's email address is something at grocean.co, then that name, you can then repurpose that name into something else and try and reach that person, right? It's in terms of a tactic of approaching people and getting people's details, it's pretty rudimentary. This Lusher, what I've shown you here is the one from Zoom, the chief exec of Zoom, no less. And what Lusher does is that this is information that is out there in the public domain. All right. So were you to scour the world on the internet and find Eric Yan's email address, then it will be this one. Okay, so what Lusher is doing is basically surfacing information that is available out there and bringing it into LinkedIn. So Lusher is a very good way of being able to target people, particularly in business. Okay, very importantly, and not with any spammy kind of email shot from MailChimp or something like that, but a very kind of specific. A very specific email from somebody who's obviously left their email address somewhere out in the world. And what Lusher does is it allows you to get very detailed information on them, and then to see them as a kind of if they're an avatar, or this kind of person is the kind of person that you are targeting, then you can get an understanding. You can perhaps ask some questions of them about what they think of the product that you're bringing to market. So it's one to be used carefully. I always remember the Nir Eyal book Hooked, which is one of the first ones ever to warn against using technology for evil. This is something that is available. It is something that is, as Lusher is out there. It is authenticated by Google and so on. So it's available. It helps you to access a market and to ask people what they think of your product, and is something that to be used sparingly but well. It can really help you to get a real handle on your niche. So that's it for this week. I really hope you've got something out of this in terms of helping to find what your niche is. We are back next week with another burning question on the Growth Execution webinar. Thanks so much for your time. Any questions, anything you need, just ping us either here on YouTube, on the Growth Execution group, on the Growth page on Facebook. But thanks very much indeed for your time, and look forward to catching up again with you soon.